teach the whole world music. To sing a simple melody. To sing about all the joys and good times, yeah. You see, that's the way God meant for it to be. And if you don't like it, you don't have to sing. You don't have to sing my song. If you don't like it, you don't have to play. You don't have to play my song. If you don't like it, you don't have to sing. You don't have to sing my song. If you don't like it, you don't have to play my song. I'd love to sing a song for all the children. They are our future, can you see? Take a little time out for the babies and teach them about love, hope, and prosperity. And if you don't like it, you don't have to sing my song. And if you don't like it, you don't have to play my song. If you don't like it, you don't have to sing.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's a wonderful, wonderful day here in Dallas, Texas. It's raining, but to me, it's still a wonderful day because God has blessed us to live to see this day. And I am thankful, thankful, thankful. There are so many who didn't get to witness this day. And I am grateful for God for blessing us to witness this day. Dear God, as I sit before you to speak, I pray to you that my soul you will keep. And if I should die before I finish, I pray to you that any outstanding sins will be forgiven. Amen. And first, I want to say to the families that I know of, and I consider myself close to these families, the Williams family, to Glenda, Robert, and Herman, and Sherman, and Vicky, and Judy. I think I got all the brothers and sisters right. To the Williams family, Paul has transitioned into eternity, their brother. And I think it was yesterday, I believe, yesterday. So we're asking you to pray for them. And also the Timmons family, Superintendent Milton Timmons and their family at the transitioning of Supervisor Joyce Timmons Rogers. So we're praying for those families, and we want you to know that we send condolences to you. And if there's something that we can do to help ease whatever emotions you're feeling right now, please feel free to call. We love you, and you know that. That comes from my heart. So we're going on into our discussion. Eula's not going to be with us today, and Cleester's not going to be with us today. And they say that God willing, they'll be with us on Tuesday. But I will let them say to you what they want to say to you, okay? And I told Clee just a few minutes ago that I'll let her tell her story, all right, if she wants to tell it. God is good. He is great. He's merciful. He's wonderful. He's worthy to be praised. Now today, I have so much. I want be able to finish it. But I'm going to talk about racial issues and articles that I have pulled up about us as a race of people and other ethnic groups too, but mainly us. And so the United Nations, and this I was not aware of until I came across this morning from the United Nations, and it is talking about the interracial decade for people of African descent. International decade. Do you hear that? Decade. That's like 10 years. Okay? The International Decade for People of African Descent goes from 2015 through 2024, dedicated to us, people of African descent. I didn't know anything about it. The United States is a part of the United Nations. Have you heard anything about this? Until this morning, until a few minutes ago, like an hour ago, or maybe an hour and a half ago, I didn't know anything about this. And do you also know, or do you know, that March the 25th of every year is dedicated to people of African descent? My goodness, it's so much in here. And I am going to just say a little bit about well, it won't be a little bit, okay? But this is very interesting to me. I had not heard of it. I had not heard of it. There are many things I haven't heard of, but this we should be informed about. We should be informed about this. I never, I'm something, oh my goodness. In proclaiming this decade, the international community is recognizing that people of African descent represent a distinct group, whose human rights must be promoted and protected. This is from the United Nations, and you can find this on the United Nations site, okay? Around 200 million people identifying themselves as being of African descent live in the Americas. Many millions more live in other parts of the world outside of the African continent. So we were not the only ones that enslaved. They didn't just bring us to America. They took us to other countries and other continents as slaves also. So it's not just America. It's not just America. It's all over the world that our people of African descent were enslaved. Millions and millions. They said over 200 million. So and listen to this, more than 4 million slaves were shipped to Brazil. Now, I know we've heard about some of these other countries, some of these other places that we were shipped to, but then there are statistics, and they said, oh, there are more than 4 million slaves were shipped to Brazil from the coast of Africa during the 16th century and onward. But the practice of slavery was abolished in 1888 when abolitionists brought the issue to the forefront. Today, descendants in Danda community, Quilombo, fight for their right to land that their ancestors once lived and worked on for generations. That's Quilombo, okay? Quilombo. So those people in Brazil, they're yet fighting for the land that their ancestors worked on for decades and centuries, for generations, So they abolished that slavery in 1888 because they worked together, okay? Together. Okay, and there's a multimedia library here in the United Nations site too that you can go to. So that's the recognition. And then we'll go to, hopefully we can get to the justice site. And there's a whole list of what the United Nations is expecting all of the different countries that belong to the United Nations to do. And this wasn't just yesterday. This wasn't just yesterday that they implemented this, 2015 through 2024. So now justice, what is the justice that they're seeking for people of African descent? The access to justice. States should take further measures by, and this comes from the United Nations, y'all. It's introducing measures to ensure equality before the law, notably in the enjoyment of the right to equal treatment before the tribunals and all other organs administering justice, designing, implementing, and enforcing effective measures to eliminate the phenomenon popularly known as racial profiling. It's all in here. It is in here. Then, eliminating institutional stereotypes concerning people of African descent and applying appropriate sanctions against the enforcement officials who act on the basis of actual profiling. Now, this morning, as I was, we multitask, many of us. So as I was studying, I was also listening and watching Good Morning America, and no, The View. And they had this young man on there, Brown. His daddy was murdered by police officers, and he was trying to get away from them in the car. Anyway, the district attorney, I guess, of whoever decides to file the charges, and I decided that they were justified in shooting him in his car, fleeing from them. They shot him in the back of the head, but yet he is saying that they don't need to be held accountable because the shooting was justified, okay? And the lawyer for the family said this morning that the laws in that state say that you are not to shoot into a car. Said that's a law. You're not to shoot into a car. The man was leaving. They shot him in the back of the head. Then they said they were shooting in a school zone. They were also shooting in a neighborhood. All of these things, but yet they're justified in shooting that man in the back of his head. And they feel vindicated. Some people have no remorse for the evil that they do. Some have no remorse. And then there are other things, and not all of these people are Caucasian police officers either. Some of them are of African descent, just like us, that are going along to get along. So this is another thing that is a negative in our race. And you know what? Many of us in our younger years didn't have the boldness that we have. We didn't have the understanding that we have. We have what was passed down from us. And I'm not saying our parents were strong individuals who believed in us being treated fairly and treated right. They made sure that we were never put in any racially negative situations. They taught us to be strong individuals, to take up for ourselves as an individual, and also as our African descent and American Indian and all the other that we have mixed in us. So they taught us to be strong, okay? To be strong and stand for our rights. And we are human beings, and we have rights on this earth. Just our rights are just as good as anybody else's. We have equal rights, okay? Even though America does not practice it. I sure did say that. America does not practice equal rights. They don't practice it. Too much is going on. But then there's so much in here that I want to get to. Okay, now let me go and just do a little bit more of this. Ensuring that people of African descent have full access to effective protection and remedies through the competent national tribunals and other state institutions against any acts of racial discrimination, and the right to seek from such tribunals just and adequate reparation or satisfaction for any damage suffered as a result of such discrimination. Adopting effective and appropriate measures, including legal measures as appropriate to combat all acts of racism, in particular, the dissemination of ideas based on racial superiority or hatred, incitement to racial hatred, violence or incitement to racial violence, as well as racist propaganda activities and participation in racist organizations. States are also encouraged to ensure that such motivations are considered an aggravating factor for the purpose of sentencing. Facilitating access to justice for people of African descent who are victims of racism by providing the requisite legal information about their rights and providing legal assistance when appropriate. This is from the United Nations, okay? A world organization, okay? Now, preventing and punishing all human rights violations affecting people of African descent, including violence, acts of torture, inhuman or degrading treatment, including those committed by state officials. And look at what's going on in the Congress, the Senate today. All these prejudiced people up there, and you know the thing they're doing, like right now, they're trying to revamp the voting laws so that they can keep us from voting next time, having the freedom to vote and elect a president of our choice. They're working on that right now to keep us from having the right to vote and access to different types of voting, like the drive-in voting and different things like that. People helping people at the polls who need help, and all kinds of things. Prejudice is here. There are prejudiced, hateful people in this world, and that it's awful. It's awful. And this is going on. We know it's going on. But I'm going to get to something in a few minutes. I plan to, that might just do a little flip on us, okay? Now, preventing and punishing all human rights violations, ensuring that people of African descent, like all other persons, enjoy all the guarantees of a fair trial and equality before the law as enshrined in relevant international human rights instruments, and specifically the right to the presumption of innocence, the right to assistance of counsel and to an interpreter, the right to an independent and impartial tribunal, guarantees of justice, and all the rights to which prisoners are entitled. Now, we're supposed to have that right. But we know that when they were making these laws, and I'm not talking about this, I'm talking about the Constitution, that they weren't writing those for us. And then even, what is it, the Emancipation Proclamation, that was a forced thing. It had to be done in order to get other things accomplished. So I'm not saying that it was all for us. You know, there's always something that you have to sacrifice in order to get what you want, okay? So we have to bear that in mind. But even though they exist, there was motive behind the passing of these laws and the writing of the Declaration of Independence and the Proclamation and all of that, okay? Emancipation Proclamation, all of the amendments in the Constitution, all of that. There was something behind it, but yet, as human beings, they said, human, that's us, okay? But at that time, they didn't consider us as human beings. They treated us worse than they treated their animals. They treated us worse than horses and cows and dogs and chickens and geese and guineas. They treated us worse than that. And I'm trying not to say what's on my mind that I'm trying to keep for a little later. Okay, I'm trying not to say that. But there are things that are embedded in us, that are inbred in us, and it's just in our minds, and it's come down through generations. Okay, through generations. But the United Nations is saying that we have the right, and even though we know it's in our Constitution, it's in the proclamation and all of that, but the United Nations took action and said this is dedicated to the people of African descent, and these things should be followed. They should be treated equally like anybody else. But we know that's not true. We know it's not true. Now, I thank God for the freedoms that we do enjoy. I thank God for laws that force people to treat us decently in many, many cases. But yet there's still evil going on. People are still doing evil toward us. And I tell you, and I know that history, I thank God for history, accurate history. I thank Him for the details and everything that are passed down to us about the slavery and the treatment of our people as slaves, and how inhumane, how they were treated, and how just people just seemed like they took pleasure in demeaning and destroying our lives, beating us, beating us, ripping the skin from our bodies with whips, sicking dogs on us, and all of the terrible, terrible, terrible things they did to us. And not only us, the Native Americans, the Mexican people, the Chinese people, the Japanese people, anybody that was not considered Caucasian, they treated them less than human, as though they were less than humans and lower than animals. Some horrible, horrible, horrible things have been done. And this is where we have to realize, I'm trying to keep from saying this, so let me go ahead. Inviting the international community and its members to honor the memory of the victims of these tragedies with a view to closing those dark chapters in history and as a means of reconciliation and healing, further noting that some have taken the initiative of regretting or expressing remorse or presenting apologies, and calling on all those that have not yet contributed to restoring the dignity of the victims to find appropriate ways to do so, and to this end, appreciating those countries that have done so. Some people are trying. Some people are trying to make reparations in some kind of way. Some people are remorseful. Some people don't want that hanging over their heads, and they apologize for their ancestors and the mean and hateful things that they did. Now, not all of the Caucasian people were mean and hateful to us, but the majority were. So that's why they had to hide, and they had to conceal their ways of helping us. They had to help us in private ways in order to escape the South, escape slavery, and get to the North where we could get freedom. And then yet they had to hide some of it, even in some of us, even in the North, because those slave catchers would travel all the way up, because they paid good money to them to retrieve our people and bring them back into slavery. So there's so much. So we, as a people, should be thankful and appreciative of each other, of each other. And that's where I'm going to go in a few minutes. Calling upon the states concerned to take appropriate and effective measures to halt and reverse the lasting consequences of those practices, bearing in mind their moral obligations. There are moral obligations. So the special measures, there are the adoption of special measures such as affirmative action, where appropriate, is essential to alleviating and remedying disparities in the enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms affecting people of African descent, protecting them from discrimination, and overcoming persistent or structural disparities and de facto inequalities resulting from historical circumstances. As such, states should develop or elaborate national plans of action to promote diversity, equality, social justice, equality of opportunity, and the participation of all by means of inter alia, affirmative or positive actions and strategies. These plans should aim at creating conditions for all to participate effectively in decision making and to realize civil, cultural, economic, political, and social rights in all spheres of life on the basis of non discrimination. This is from the United Nations. From the United Nations. And then I also went and I said, now, how far have we actually come as a people? How far have we actually come? And thank God we've come a long way because many of us banded together and we've worked together along with people who are not of African descent, who have assisted and worked with us in getting to where we are right now. But now, who can help you more than you can help yourself if you have a mind to do it? And my thing is that interracial prejudice, interracial, interracial prejudices. That means that within the race, within the African descendants race, there's prejudice toward each other. And we know it to be a fact. There's jealousy, there's envy towards each other. And how can you progress at the rate that you should progress when you're hindering each other? A house divided against itself cannot stand. We should be much further up the road, farther than we are right now. But because of interracial prejudices, we are where we are now. And sometimes it seems like we're stagnated. Even all of our people were not with Martin Luther King Jr. All of our people were not with Harriet Tubman. All of our people have never been 100% behind people who have tried and strove to get us into better conditions of living. There's always a group, or there are different groups that are holding back, that are fighting against. Some are afraid, and I understand that. Some feel like we're better off now than we have been, so we might as well stay here in this and not go out there to the unknown and not know what's going to happen. So some people don't want to venture out. But because some people were brave enough, we are where we are today. And I thank God for that. We have the freedom. I have the freedom to sit here and talk to you today. And you have the freedom to talk back to me through messages and all of that. And I am thankful for that. But let me go here to the USA Today, which is an article, Black History Month 2021. Now, remember, the United Nations started the March 25th is a day that honors us, people of African descent. Now, we know February has been designated an African American month, but I see every day to me is a day for us, okay? We have come through so much. We are resilient people. The more they try to hold us down, the stronger we get. And I am so thankful to God for that. And I wrote a piece many, many years ago, and I have to find it. I know it's in my white notebook, and I have to find that little notebook, but I know it's we as a people. I wrote that, we as a people, and God, I believe God's going to bless me to dig it out, and I'm going to present it to you because we as a people, now just think if we as a people would band together 100%, my God, that's a force that cannot be reckoned with. Because even now, when we band together, we are strong. Strong. When we band together, we're stronger. That's why unity, where there is unity, there is strength. And people need to realize, our people need to realize that everybody can't lead. It's not everybody's time to lead at one particular time. We all have different times to lead in different areas that God blesses us to lead in. So when one is leading for this time and this era, let that person lead. Then when your time comes, when my time comes, then we band together and get with that leader, as long as that leader is doing what's right and just for us as a whole. Now, I'm not talking against any other ethnic race. That's not what I'm doing. I'm talking to us as a people because we have so many flaws within, and that's what hinders us. We should be further on up the road than where we are. But because of the interracial prejudices, the jealousy, the envy, the strife within our own race, we're stunted. Yes, we are. We are stunted because when one goes up, somebody's trying to pull that one down. Oh no, no, she just want to be leader. He just want to be known. He just wants somebody to see him and all that kind of stuff. We have got to get that frame of mind, release it into the pits of hell. Because as long as we think, you can look at it, look at it, look at it, look in the businesses that we set up. Look at it in the church. Yes, I'm going there because that's the biggest business among us as a people, where we can operate it ourselves, okay, and have the freedom inside there to do what we want to. And hopefully we're all doing God's will, but we know that ain't happening because if it was, it wouldn't be so much envy, strife, fighting within if it was all happening. That's with anything we do. Many of our people will not support our own businesses. And then some of our businesses that do open up, they gouge us. They gouge us. Yes, it happens. It happens. They charge the highest price. Well, this is a black owned business, and I don't like to say black because I don't feel like I don't I won't go into that. Okay, but anyway, people, they gouge us. I will never. I remember when we were going to get some work done here, and there was a cap on the work that was going to be paid for. There was a cap on it. So we got estimates, and we knew what the cap was on it, how much they would pay, what the max is that they would pay. And so when we brought one of our own people here for that estimate, do you know he went and said, well, it's going to cost this much, which was the cap. And we know that there's no way it would have cost that much because the little space that we needed taken care of would not cost the maximum of what he was going to charge us. So I knew right then that he wasn't going to do the work for us. So we have flaws within, but yet we are beautiful people. We are wonderfully blessed. We're wonderfully made, but yet we have flaws just like anybody else. And until we work on ourselves inwardly and get things right within our own race, that unity that we're supposed to have together, that unity, that togetherness, because I said it just a few minutes ago, where there is unity, there is strength. A house divided against itself cannot stand. Do you know that some of our people, I'm going back to the slave trade and all of that, and these slave hunters, these the retrieved slaves when they ran away, many of those people had our own people tracking us. Yes, they did. Those people were mean to us. And I know that many times it was survival. It was a survival thing. If they didn't do what they were supposed to do to us and treat us with inhumane, what is it? I'll say treatment again, then they themselves were in jeopardy. But some were cruel, just as cruel as the people who made them go alone. And it's just awful. And then we had things, light skinned people we thought were prettier, were better, more privileged than us, and sometimes even smarter than us. This is what we thought. Some of us thought that light skinned people seemed like light skinned people got more privileges, they were favored more than dark skinned people. All of this is within. And so I found a piece, and I guess it must have gone away, but about prejudices within the flaws that we have that we have. And until we fix it within, we cannot be successful in getting other people to get on board with us and treat us good when we don't treat each other good. It's just like I look at the United States of America, the holier than thou people who want to tell every country that they're wrong and you should do it like this and you should do it like that, and threaten them, if you don't do this like this, we're going to take away these funds and we're not going to assist you or anything like that. The United States is always trying to fix somebody else's country when all of this prejudice, all this hatred, all this murder, and all this toward each other is happening right here. Now, how are you going to be justified in going to tell somebody else what to do when you're not right yourself? There's so much happening. People are looking beyond when they should be looking within. And that's where we mess up. We see what's happening. We see what we perceive as wrong in other people. And we're so clouded in our minds with trying to control other people and see the wrong, see the flaws in other people. And we're so full of flaws within ourselves that we can't see them. And what they say, you can't see the forest for the trees. We don't see ourselves because we cause ourselves looking beyond, and everybody else is imperfect and we're the perfect ones. We're the mighty righty ones. But it's not like that. And until we get it together, that's country wise, racial wise, within our own race, until we get it together, we'll never be where we're supposed to be. We'll never get to where we're supposed to get until we start loving each other, genuinely loving each other, supporting each other in right. And then when someone is wrong, try to help that person to know, okay, you were wrong, so you need to get it right. If you can get it right, if you can't get it right, if you have to suffer the consequences, we're still with you if you need our support in helping you to realize and helping you to be a better person than when you were, when you did whatever you did that was not right. Supporting one another in the good and in the right. That's what we're supposed to do. And until we look deep within, and see ourselves for who we really are, we will never be able to help each other. Never be able to reach out and effectively help someone else because we're so busy downing each other. And you know it's right. I know it's right. I've stepped and I've seen done some things to be done toward me, seen it, heard it, witnessed it. And if we don't get it together, we're still going to be talking about it till the day Jesus comes back. Oh, the injustice. And yes, there will still be injustice. But if we band together, whatever ethnic group band together for righteousness and human equality toward us as ethnic groups, us as African descent, Asian descent, whatever it is, until we come together within ourselves, together ourselves, we will never get what we deserve because we're too busy fighting internal towards one another, too busy fighting internal. And it's happening every single day. And when people say, well, I don't want to be a part of that because they're just as bad as us out here. And in many cases, they're telling the truth because people observe, they see things. And you can't convince them that they didn't see what they saw when they saw what they saw because it's true what they saw. It's a fact. So what do we need to do? We need to concentrate and get clean within in every way. First, ask God to renew our minds, renew our minds, and give us the strength to be able to have the love for each other. And now I'm talking about across racial lines, period. Because we have to love each other. I'm not saying we have to take all the mess and all the junk that others put on us. I'm not saying that. But we must love humankind as a whole. Because everybody is not mean and hateful and evil. But there are evil people within. And until we start working on ourselves, we cannot effectively work on somebody else. And so it lies within. The responsibility is taking care of what we lack first, and then spread the word. The love starts at home, and then you spread it. It has to start with me. The flaws that I have to work on those flaws. And then when I got trying to go out and help someone else in an area, a certain area, I have to make sure that within me, that area is right with me, within. And then I can effectively help someone else. So talking about us, the United Nations has designated a whole decade in honor of us, of African descent. And we're all over the world. There's not one place that you can go, I don't believe, where you don't see someone of African descent. Because we're all over the place. And we didn't ask to be all over the place. We were taken and put all over the place. And since we're all over the place, let us do what we can to make it a better place for each of us. And it starts with some people might not believe prayer. Some people say that they don't believe God. But I tell you this from my experiences, There is true, and I know that prayer is. And then God leaves in there about the prayer that if we pray according to His will, then His will be done. And then we will accept His will that's done in our lives, because God has a way of doing things that are good for us that might seem like it's in the wrong direction. But as long as we're in the will of God and we accept the will of God, it will work out in our favor if we love God, okay? And are called according to purpose. It'll work out. Why am I saying this? Because I know for a fact we can pray and pray and pray. And sometimes people say that the answer could be no. People think that He doesn't answer, but it's either a yes or a no. And how do we know it's a no if it doesn't come to pass? But we must be sure to say, God, not my will, but thy will be done. And because I love you, God, I know that whatever you do is going to work out in my favor. And that's us as a people. That's us as a nation. That's us as a world. Yes, awful, awful, awful things happen. Awful things happen. People have been sacrificed. But look, when people band together for a common cause, then many things can be accomplished. Many things can be accomplished. There is strength in numbers. There is strength in numbers. And you must be on one accord. So when somebody brings forth a movement or an idea, if you're going to join that movement, if you're going to accept that idea, if you want to be a part of that movement, then follow the leadership, as long as the leadership is going in the right direction. Because we know that some people will start out as good leaders and end up as bad leaders, leading people in leading them astray into dangerous situations, and situations that will benefit that person who started out as a good leader and now is a bad leader. So the people are looking up to them, and so they're using the people to their benefit. We've seen it over and over again. So that's where your trust in God guiding you and leading you to follow and go in the right direction. And I can say for a fact, and I'm repeating this, God is real. He lives, and He will live forever. He's watching us. He's guiding us who want to be guided by Him. He's preserving us. He's protecting us. And then if we are to be sacrificed for some reason known to God, then He prepares us for that sacrifice. Now, I'm not talking about the sacrifice that Jesus Christ made. That's not what I'm saying, because there's no one that can supersede that. He came and died for all of us, and we would be saved and we will have eternal life. So that's a done deal. But sacrifices, look at the people whose lives have been sacrificed so that people will be motivated to band together, support each other, and get laws created, laws strengthened, and not only on paper, not only on the computer, not only in the virtual world, but that these laws will be enacted, they will be practiced, and people will be held accountable for their actions. against humanity. And one thing I want to say also, another thing I want to say is that people don't realize, I don't think they're thinking that whatever they do is going to come back to them. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man, woman sows, that shall he or she also reap. It's coming back again. And some people, many people call it karma, Karma. But it's coming back again. People, I I look at people and I think about the situations, and this pandemic has brought about so many changes. And so we know that we have people in places and hospitals, and I thank God for the doctors and nurses. I really do. But then we have people who take advantage of these times in order to have power over people and their families. And so my thing is now that one thing I'm thinking about doing, and I'm going to have to follow through, if some action is not taken within the next, 2 weeks, I'm going to have to take some action myself. Because unless we let these people know that they're not the big boss, they might think they are, but there's somebody who's a bigger boss than they are. Now we know that God Almighty is over everything, but there are people in positions that can help us out when we ask for them. But you have to take action. And it's just like faith without works is dead. You can have an idea, but if you don't put that idea into action, it'll never get done. It'll never, what is it? What am I saying? It'll never come to pass. It'll never come out if you don't put that idea into action. So when you see things that need to be done, first we must examine ourselves, and that's even in the Bible. It tells us to examine ourselves first, make sure that we have everything in order within ourselves, especially on that particular thing that we want to work on and try to improve, try to help somebody else on. Make sure that we have that thing all set and right within us. And then we will be more effective in helping someone else. So talking about a Black History Month 2021, talking about how things have changed, and we see people, and I'm talking about sacrifices. Mr. George Floyd and the lady, I think her name was, and forgive me if I don't get it, yeah, Breonna Taylor. They didn't know, had no idea that they would be internationally known and they would be sacrificed for the rights of others because their lives were sacrificed through horrible, horrible conditions, that they were murdered. But because of that, people were called to action, and things are happening because of what happened to them to better the lives of other people. And we're not happy that they sacrificed their lives, that their lives were sacrificed so tragically. But because of their sacrifice, we're making headway, especially those who are working together and banded together. So going back to the United Nations, I invite you to go to the United Nations site and look at that, where they're honoring people for a whole decade, from 2015 to through 2024, people of African descent, and urging these countries and states and all of these leaders to make sure that they consider us and that they make sure that we have our rights just like anybody else. We know we don't, but they're telling them to work on it. This is what you should be doing. You should be taking care of your own, which they don't. But we are much farther along than we were even 100 years ago. We're much farther along because of the grace of God and because He instilled in those people to take courage. And this, you have to go and you have to fight for the rights of your people. You have to fight for the rights of your people. Some had to bear arms. They had to fight for their lives. I mean, physically, like shooting and whatever other things they had to do to survive. Some are doing peaceful things, nonviolent. All of those things work together in order to get us to where we are today. And then they're going to work to get us to where we need to be, even though we know that evil men will wax worse and worse. They're trying to get laws into effect now where it would take us back instead of bringing us forward. But see, now we have strength. And like I said, there's strength in numbers. So we can use our voices. So the more they try to take away our rights, we can arm ourselves up and we can get more of us to show up when it's time to vote. Because there are more of us than they could ever think, of all different ethnic backgrounds. And if we band together, stick together, we can do magnificent, great exploits just by being together, banding together. And I repeat, there's strength in numbers. So if the United Nations saw the need to tell people, you need to treat these people right. These people deserve the rights that you exercise. You are wrong for denying them the freedoms and the rights that they deserve as human beings. No human being is superior than the other or to the other. God made us. He made all of us human beings, even though we have different skin tones, we have different languages, different backgrounds, but He made us all human beings. And we all have the right to the same liberty. We have the right to the pursuit of happiness. Pursue happiness. Pursue it. Go after it. Obtain it. We have that right. And I thank God that we're not where we used to be, but we can be farther than we are now. But it takes togetherness in every area of life. Every area of life. This inward prejudices, this fighting, the discrimination that's within is what's really hindering us. I love you. I love you. I love you. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your day. And as I said, God willing, Eula and Clee will be with us Tuesday for Point of View with Shirley, Cleester, and Eula. And I'm not monitoring on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch today. I'm just on one screen today. Well, I'm on two. I'm using one for my information. But I love you so much. I do. And I thank you for joining me. And as I had said to Deborah DeHorning, And Teresa sent me a message. Teresa Jones sent a message also that I am planning, if God allows, to be at Mount Olive Baptist Church in Denison, Texas for the women's program function on let me see, the 29th of this month at 10 a.m. That's Mount Olive Baptist Church in Denison, Texas. And oh gosh, I know your pastor's name. But anyway, Deborah, if you're watching, just go ahead and you can put it up there again in the comments, okay? I love you all, and I pray that God will continually bless and keep you. And I pray now that God will watch over each of us and keep us from all hurt, harm, and danger until the next time. And I pray for healing. I pray for consolation. I pray for comfort for whoever it is needed, okay? For whomever. In Jesus' name, I pray and give thanks to you, God. Amen. Good day. Enjoy your day.